Hi guys, this is Annie Gardner. Welcome to the Worthy Podcast, where we talk about being bold and doing hard things. I'm very excited today to have my friend Priscilla Tallman on the show.
Hello, good to be here.
So excited because I feel like, there's so much meat that we can talk about. Like if we're talking about a good steak, you're probably a good steak to have. I don't know why I did a steak analogy.
Yeah.
But
Texas, it's the Texas
It
thing.
is a Texas. I mean, meat. And my husband loves to eat meat. We don't eat chicken or fish hardly, so maybe that's why. Okay. Let's give us a brief background because I know your background. You're a collegiate athlete. I'm not. I was afraid of balls actually in high school, so I didn't do sports with balls. So here, tell me about yourself, that background.
So I played volleyball all when I was younger. Just fell in love with the sport of volleyball.
Yeah.
And was super obsessive about it. So I wasn't very big. I was a little small, little tiny thing.
Short or just thin?
Short and
Okay.
tiny, little tiny thing, like a little mosquito, little. And I just got obsessed with getting good at it. So I did. And so I would go and play in the backyard, and I would bump the ball up onto the roof, and I made up all these games for myself. And eventually I grew. And so that made some coaches take notice. So played in high school, I played in club, and then I played at the University of Georgia.
Yes.
I graduated from Georgia. I played with the U.S. national team during my junior and senior year of Georgia. And then I played one season of professional volleyball in Switzerland.
Yes.
And then that was that for a very long while. Then I started coaching, I'd say about 7 years ago. And then most recently, I just stopped coaching. I stopped doing kind of all the things so that I could focus on my business, which is mental performance coaching.
Yeah.
So I have a master's in clinical psychology and just love all things performance and mental health.
I love that.
Yeah.
I on one of the other podcasts, Rita's on, and so I just realized that you were also at the Be Bold conference, and I remember that you were speaking, and it was in regard to also mental health and volleyball and coaching and what your expertise is in. But the reason that I didn't know you, I actually did not know you back then, and our boys are the same age.
Yep.
But the Lord back then was like, hey, you need to go just call this lady, and I was like, okay. And I'm always of the mindset, what is the worst thing that she can say? No.
Yeah.
And then, has anyone ever died from a no? No. So you met me for coffee and you heard my heart, and that just came to remembrance. And you did speak then. And just a little background, when I was going to write, or I was in the process of writing my journal, I was like, okay, I'm going to call Priscilla because you have your journal that you've written. Talk about that. And you helped me do that because I was like, okay, I don't know. Who do I ask? Because I feel like sometimes women can feel threatened or intimidated by one, asking for help, or two, oh, she's going to do the same thing I'm doing. And so when I was processing that with the Lord, I was like, wait, well, first of all, your journal was not what I was writing, but you were so sweet to walk me through the entire process. Yeah. You did. And I forgot about that till recently.
Yeah. No, one of the things that I am such a believer in is that it's really hard to put something into the world. It feels vulnerable, it feels risky, it feels scary.
Yeah.
And so if people ever ask me for help, I'm always willing to do that. And not that I have all of the answers, I certainly don't, but I just remember having not a lot of help myself and thinking what do you even do? And I called somebody that was one of my friends. He had just published a book, and I was like, who's your publisher? Yeah. What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And he answered questions for me. So number one, I'm always willing to help because putting something out in the world is a risk. And number two, anybody, and you'll see this in your life every day, anybody worth their salt in this world will help you.
Yeah.
Anybody I have ever called, it doesn't matter how successful these people are, how many followers they have on social, whatever. If they are worth their salt and they're good people, they will always call me back. They will always say, hey, how can I help you? they'll spend 5 minutes.
Yeah. And you've talked about that before. I remember you saying you would just make it a goal to talk to people and call them, like cold call them, and they would call you back.
Absolutely.
I do remember that. Yeah, because there's so much wisdom in that. And it's hard, especially because the fear of rejection is, I mean, it's real. The fear of rejection is real in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember you talking about that a lot on your...
Yeah.
It's in there. Because it taught me. It still teaches me things, you know? Like people, I make fun of John because he says, I read this article, I read this the other day, and I challenged him and I said, where exactly, he's going to be so mad that I'm throwing him under the bus. Where exactly did you read that? Because he reads a lot.
Yeah.
And he said, well, actually, I saw it in a video. But, you know, I just tell people I read it because what's the difference? And I was like, oh, okay. So now I do make fun of them. Because a lot of wisdom now is on video. Like
100%.
reading, but, I mean, video. What we're doing is video.
Yeah, no, I do like finding little nuggets on social and whatever. But I am old school. I'm not young, so I do still like to pick up the phone. I do still like to call people or have coffee or have lunch. And the older I get, the more I really value that, and I really want to be doing that a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of value in that. Especially, I mean, that's how you walked me through the process. I do vividly remember that because I had just moved to Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to shift a little bit because you talked about getting older, and our boys are the same age. And I didn't realize, I guess, that you were just a little older than me. But I want you to talk about like the boldness and how hard it was, because what you do with your family isn't considered normal. Is that so sad to say?
Well,
right?
That's right.
But it's true. Yeah. Like the way that you steward your house and your life, your marriage and your kids isn't the norm. And I love it. Yeah. So talk about that.
Well, okay, you're a Texan now.
Yeah.
I grew up in Texas, but I grew up in Austin.
Okay.
So I will forever be weird. I am just a weirdo because that's where we all originated, right? And so I think so much of like even just how I was raised, you know, my parents both worked, but there was always this expression of just being able to like do things your way if it works out, you know. Yeah. And I'm not saying like, I'm trying to quote, like, live my truth. I'm just saying that this works for us. I had my kids early on in Montessori schools, which is also not usually the norm for them. And after everyone else left after preschool and the families were kind of going to all of the other schools around, I'm like, my kids are actually fine here. They're doing really well. And I was worried, like, okay, my kid's not at, like, first grade reading level or whatever level of grade he was, but I stopped caring. It was very interesting. I had the teachers there were so supportive, and they were just helping me get confidence in raising my children. Yeah. Instead of looking out to what the world's doing, they were confirming in my heart, this is what's good for you and your family, and they were just the biggest cheerleaders. Yeah. So that was a big time for me when they were little. I mean, my kids didn't get a report card until I think my son would have been in 6th grade.
Wow. In middle school?
Yeah, maybe 7th, because, it would have been 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know what grade they're in, but here we go.
Because honestly, I like not to be normal, because the way also we live our life isn't normal. And you did allude to it, like you're like, I don't know if the word is like living my truth. But the way I kind of see it also is that, because you hear from the Lord, and you've shared a devotional with me, actually, that I really love. I've shared it before. And I think her name is Priscilla Shriver?
Shire, yeah.
Yeah, Shire.
Yeah.
And I moved to Texas, and I share custody with Joey. And so to the world and to people think so many things. And it's hard, but I'm just doing what the Lord told me to do. And Joey, my son, happens to be thriving in that. Because when I do have him, it's one-on-one, like even more than when he was little. Because when he was younger, it was like I was doing the rat race. I was like working, going to the gym, only seeing Joey at night. Whereas now I have him when I have him. I mean, 100% making meals together, doing all the things together. And I think that's so beautiful, but it's not normal because to the world or to other people, they think, oh, that's so weird or.
Yeah, or like we've gone backwards somehow as women to like
Yes.
stay in the home and raise our kids and be, family people. I always joke about it, but like the most earning potential I've had as a woman,
Yeah.
I spent in my kitchen and
Yeah.
doing laundry and raising my kids.
Yes.
And I'm not sure there's a dollar price that I would put on that
Yeah.
to exchange it and say, well, I could have been making, I used to out earn Rich, my husband,
Yeah.
salary wise. And then, when I got pregnant, we decided that I would stay home. I think we had just moved to Arizona. So it was like, we didn't have family. It was going to be like childcare, whatever,
Yes.
which is fine. I mean, I sent him to daycare some days because I was like, this child is busy, right? So we've chosen some things that way. We currently homeschool both of our kids. I'm just now sort of stepping back into actual work. I did coach college and high school and
Right.
club for like 7 years, but
Yes.
most of it was local. It wasn't that, I don't know, I wouldn't say stressful. There were some moments that were really tough as a family.
Yeah.
Things we had to do because I did travel a bit, but, now I'm actually committed to saying, okay, what can I do work-wise? So getting back into that after being home for 16 years and people are like,
Yeah.
what skills do you have?
And you're like, excuse me. Hold on. I'm very, educated
A.
and smart, but also, honestly,
You run a
though,
whole business and when you run a house. Like, I know people think that's silly. It doesn't make any sense, but no, literally.
yes, but you're also, it's so just skewed how people see that. Like what you did with your family, like the lie that the world tells us is that you're not worth anything unless you make this amount of money in your career.
Right.
And I believed that lie for a long time because I used to preach that, like, oh, be bold and what you can do and what you can build. And I built and I climbed the career ladder. And at some point for us recently, I stopped working like at an office, like where I left in December. And that was the Lord's timing because of what he did with our family. And so now we've had the conversation, if I went back to taxes, like just financially what it would cost. And then we decided to build a business. So you are now at, like, your kids are older now too. So now you're like, okay, I'm going to do the thing. Talk about what you're doing now.
Yeah. So like I said, I got my master's in clinical psychology. I decided not to get licensed. I had about 1,500 clinical hours under my belt when we moved to Arizona. So at the time, I couldn't get MFT, which is marriage and family therapy, supervision hours because Arizona didn't have that tracked at the time.
Okay.
So I would have had to have out-of-state supervision. And back when I was doing it, there was no anything. There was no Zoom. There was no Skype. I mean, it would have been like, hi, like talking over the phone with my supervisor. So it just didn't make a lot of sense. So after I went back into coaching, I'm like, wow, this is how I can get close to the athletes. Like the only way that they're going to listen is by coaching them. They're never going to go to therapy. Like at the time I was in a therapy counseling center, like on a college campus. And I'm like, where are all the athletes? Don't they want to come to therapy? Like, no. So it really kind of in my mind opened up this whole path of the struggles of specifically the student athlete. The pressures and the challenges that athletes have, not to say other people don't, but because I had played sports, I was just so connected to that in my heart. And so coaching allowed me to see that. It allowed me to see where the gaps are, where kids are not getting help, why they don't reach out for help, all that kind of stuff. And so started a mental performance business. I've been working with collegiate athletes, club teams, club coaches, high school teams, high school coaches, professional athletes that are playing in Europe, a lot of volleyball athletes that are playing in Europe. I work with an athletic agency, so agents to these volleyball players, and they're based in Sweden. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been mostly over the phone on Zoom calls.
Okay.
You know, coaching these girls through this stuff, the challenges, life changes, team changes, challenges with coaching or teammates or whatever.
Yeah. That's an awesome resource. Like, you're an awesome resource.
Thank
that
you.
isn't talked about, I don't think, enough.
Well, and I think for me, what I love the most about this work is that, not to say that other people aren't doing it the same way, but my whole heart of it is that we become people after we stop playing our sport. So if I can help them play really well when they're playing, I can help them overcome mental blocks, I can work on performance tools and things like that. But also I know, because of the training I've had and the things I've learned from my grad programs, these are going to be skills that you'll use in your life after. And you can actually have better relationships. You'll have better emotional regulation in your life. You can handle your body better instead of it just coming to a halt. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times, what would it look like for someone who doesn't even know that they can get help?
It would look like me after having Joaquin and having postpartum depression, and thinking that I was strong enough and tough enough to just do it. And then I finally was like, okay, I told my husband, I'm like, something is wrong. This isn't just I don't feel good. Something is wrong. Take me to, I think I had him take me to the hospital, the Banner Thunderbird hospital. Yeah. And he was mad. He was frustrated. You have a baby. What's wrong with you? You can't be broken, because he was scared.
Yeah.
And, that really was the journey for both of us, led to a lot of these decisions. And we had to really surrender that to God as well. Yeah. Man, this kid is not ours. This marriage is not ours. Right? This belongs to no one. This belongs
what
to
you're
God.
saying is so true, because anytime it gets hard in marriage or as a parent, I have the fear of the Lord when it comes to parenting. And he reminds me, he is not yours, he's mine. Yeah. So when even our living situation, I surrendered. I mean, there is nothing like trusting God than trusting him with your marriage and your kids. Okay, Lord, he's not mine, he's yours. But, I would love it to look like this. And the Lord is like, do you trust me or do you not trust me? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and so Joaquin's name, and I want to say it's Portuguese, it means raised by Yahweh. And we were like, beautiful. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cute and spiritual. And then we were dude, he's definitely raised by you. Because we have a hand in it, but there are days where we're just he's God's kid.
That's so
he is
cool.
Raised by God.
Yeah.
And we just get to sort of nurture who he is and get to see all the cool things, right? Ultimately, he gets to be whoever God wants him to be, which is awesome.
Okay, so you're an athlete. What about your kids?
So that also is maybe a little bit of a different path that we've taken.
Yeah.
My kids all played the ball sports. So they did soccer, and Joaquin did baseball. They've done volleyball, beach volleyball. They've done all the traditional sports because, they're busy kids. And we were like, let's just
tire them out. Let them have fun.
They got to get their wiggles out.
Yeah. Yes.
But it came to the point where they did not want to do that anymore. And so we just kind of started thinking initially that gut feeling of you can't quit something.
Right.
You can't quit. You got to stick with it. And Rich was very much you got to stick with it. But I was like, maybe they don't. Let's just see. And so Joaquin's been on a bike since he was a baby. Remember those little seats they have that you can put on the front? You can put these little seats on the front? Yeah. He was in that thing at the second he turned one. Wow. Second his head was stable enough to be on that thing, he was in it. And so he mountain bikes. He's a mountain biker now, so he races competitively.
So cool.
It's very cool. It's very hard to watch your child do that. But again, he loves it. And, I just I watch them all come down, and then I just kind of like, okay, they're all down. Good. Yeah. And then I can take a breath. And then my daughter rides horses.
I love that.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. She's so good with animals. She has to, put the saddles on them, brush them, wash them. We go and we clean out stalls once a week, so we clean up all the mess. And then she plays guitar and takes voice lessons with the worship leader at our church. So
good.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like sometimes, and that's okay.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
When you just are like, oh, like, what if?
Yeah.
Like, what if we didn't do it like that? Or what if we did allow them to quit? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah.
Because you still have to parent through that. You still have to give them the tools to navigate. Well, you quit something, now what? Right? So you still have to parent through that hard thing. You don't just, the feeling of quitting feels good initially, but you still have to.
How do you teach them, like your own kids and your athletes, like, okay, it's hard, and now what? Like, we can do hard things.
Yep.
Like, it is hard, but how are we going to do that?
I actually was just talking to an athlete about this on Wednesday, and we were talking about how you sort of have to move the ladder of discomfort. You have to allow yourself to feel uncomfortable before you can build strength into the next thing. But the more threshold for discomfort that you have, the more that layer moves up. And so the next time you try that thing, it won't feel as hard because you've moved the threshold for how uncomfortable you feel.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, okay, I quit something and I feel, I feel like a loser, or I made a mistake. Oh, I can't believe I'm so embarrassed, whatever.
Yeah.
If you can sit in that for a minute and say, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this, I hate the way this feels, but I'm alive, I made it, I got friends, I got people who care about me, then you can move that threshold up.
That's good.
Because there's certain things in your world that when something hard happens, some things change. There are definitely things that change. But there's a lot of things that stay the same. And we get all focused on what changed and what's hard and what's different, when really, like, the things that we still have are still there. And we forget to see that, like the people who love us, our faith, our home, people who care about us, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
My character doesn't change because I lost a job. My character doesn't change because I had postpartum depression.
Right. Yeah.
So that's usually how I talk them through it, because we just need to keep moving that level of discomfort. And then one day you're like, oh, wow, like, look how far back that was.
Yeah.
Like, I've moved so much, like, so many spaces forward.
Right. So for you personally now, in this season, because now you're stepping out again after being home for 16 years. And it's so funny, right? Like, being in the kitchen and cooking, like, I feel like your kids are your first ministry. That's your first ministry. And now you're stepping out again. And it's hard. Talk to me about that. Like, how you're relinquishing it to God, and how you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing the hard thing.
Yeah, my kids are happy because they don't like my food. So they're just like, you go do what you got to do, Mom.
Who cooks?
Rich will grill. He makes a good steak.
Yeah.
And the kids actually, like, there's some pretty decent, already prepped meals that they can do by themselves.
Yeah.
So whatever. So food-wise, there's that.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, no, stepping out again has been a challenge. When I had my kids, I was 34 and 36 when I had Lincoln. And so I looked different. I had different energy. I could do things. I cared more about certain things. And I just turned 50 in June, so last month. And there's just things like I won't tolerate anymore. And I'm just a different person. So it's been challenging to get back out there of like, okay, who am I? What do I care about now? How many hours in the day do I want to be doing this and pursuing these things? Because the stamina for just nonsense is not there. So I've got to be a little bit more choosy in what I do. And again, my first priority is still the kids. They are still in my house. They're not out yet. So the priority of still doing that well, is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that kids are always watching what we do.
Yeah.
And so what do they have to say? Because they see their mom. Like, I just love the feedback, or I call it like word vomit sometimes, where teenage boys specifically don't say things right. And then all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
really? I didn't know that. And so what do they have to say about mom? Like, you're bold. They recognize that? Like, what do they have to say?
Yeah. We talk about it quite a bit because, you know, and maybe you do this with your son as well, but like, I'm not like a regular girl.
Yeah.
Like, so I talk about like, I'm kind and I'm caring, but I might not always be nice. So we talk about that in terms of like.
Yes, we do talk about that specific thing.
Boldness is sort of like, this is who I am. This is how I show up every day. This is how I choose to show up. I think yesterday I was on a call and I was like, oh my gosh, I botched that. I just said certain things. I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, that's how I showed up in that day.
Yeah.
It was nothing I needed to apologize for, but like just showing up, I think is the conversation around boldness for us. And then, you know, what do they have to say about the work? I mean, my daughter is like so excited. I remember when I was coaching, she was like, my mom is a coach. My mom is a coach. I love her so much.
Aww.
She is my mom. She is a coach. Like,
yeah.
She's kind of like just this cheerleader sort of.
That's so cool.
Personality. So when she sees me, she just gets excited. And they laugh at me sometimes. Like, you have these journals. You don't sell any journals. No one buys your journals. I'm like, you guys, seriously, like, don't
They're
be so
like
mean.
the first ones to humble us.
They're
also.
so mean. Yeah,
they are mean.
But my son, now that he's getting older, he's like, hey, I can help you with your Instagram. Like, I can make it better.
I love
I know.
that.
So, and I think I'm like, okay, because you can do it. That's fine. I think they're Gen Alpha. What are our kids?
I think you're right.
Z or Alpha?
No,
I don't even know.
I think they're Z.
They might be Z.
But
who knows?
Or Lincoln is Alpha. I think I don't know either, but they're so smart.
They're so smart.
They're so smart.
Yeah.
Joey's so smart, and they are so smart. It's wild and humbling.
That's why when I look at like I'm always like, gosh, man, people are they like hate on Gen Z, and I'm like, these kids are rad. Like I've had the opportunity to coach so many kids, college kids, high school kids, whatever, all the gens, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Y, Z, X, whatever.
Yeah.
No X because I'm X. But like, yeah, I just think that's been so cool to see that they have different, I'm not saying different like jargon, but they have a different language. They can actually express things. They know their emotions. Mm-hmm. Which I think is something that I never knew for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the joys I think of getting to raise kids is getting to see the world in a different way.
Yeah.
Even if I'm grumpy sometimes.
It's so funny when you said about being nice, because in our house we're very matter of fact and very sarcastic, and John is way more than I am, and so sometimes my feelings get hurt, and he's like, hold up, if you're that way, then we're all that way, like you have to take it. Mm-hmm. And so then I have to coach us when we're out with other people, that just because we can handle how we speak to each other, because sometimes we'll speak to each other that way, and some people are like, oh, are y'all okay? And we're like, what? This is normal, because we say what we feel and we say what we think. We don't sugarcoat. We don't sugarcoat in our house. And so that's really funny. John will be like, your face, watch your face. I'm like, I'm happy. I'm just not smiling all the time. Yeah.
That's when I was coaching. That was something I worked on, because they're like, oh, Coach P, are you mad? I'm like, no, this is my face. But I had to learn how to, like when setting up a drill, like how to raise my eyebrows and like make my voice go high or whatever, so that they would know like, okay, we're in a good space.
Yeah.
It's not known if you're happy or sad. Like you sometimes have to show that.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And, yeah, and actually Joaquin jokes all the time. He's like, why are you so mad? Mom, why are you so mad? And I'm like, just because I am. Like, and I'm not, but like, you know what I mean? But he just thinks it's funny as well. But
I know. I hear that, and I try to be very mindful about it. But anyway, okay, if you, because of the wisdom that you have, what would you tell yourself, like, in your younger self, in like, okay, it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. Things are not going to go out as planned, but how does your relationship with God weave into this? Like, speak into that.
I have to be more patient. I'm so action oriented, and I have a lot of ambition that's like, it's not the good kind of ambition. You know, it's former athlete ambition.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I have to sort of really be patient. It's gotten easier as I've gotten older, but I really struggled with this. Like, I'd see something, oh, I can go do that, and I would go do it. Or I can try this, and there is some good stuff. It got me to publish 2 journals.
Yeah.
It has allowed me to start a business. That crazy, wild ambition has allowed me to do a lot of things and pursue things that are actually really noble and great.
Yeah.
But it does have an ugly side to it. And so I think that's where it's like, you know, at night, if I put my head on my pillow and I'm thinking and I'm just like processing with God, it's like, gosh, help me to be patient and just be still and listen. Because ultimately, I know when I'm in step with Him and I know when I'm not. And a lot of times I function out of step with God. Mm-hmm. I think He allows me to do that, to show me, like, keep on going, girl. I'm going to, you know, like, what I have is better. But He will allow me to kind of extend all the way out to the limit of myself. So He can show me, like, this is actually better.
I have this for you.
Yeah. But I struggle with that. Man, I think that's my struggle, is that two-sided ambition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is hard because, like I said in the beginning, was I could do everything in my own strength. And that was the lie that I believed. Mm-hmm. And so now it's like, actually, no. So I try to ask God about everything. What do you have to say about this? Even a few years ago, I cut all my hair off because the Lord was like, hey, you like that too much. And I was like, what? And it was true. And so just processing all the things with Him. And I love that you're someone that I admire because you walk in your anointing. Like, you're gifted in what you're doing, and God put that in you, and you walk with it, like in it, with authority, because you fear God and you steward your family that way. And I admire you for that, because it shows. I love that. I admire that.
It feels, what I feel that I put into the world feels really messy. Like, I'm always wondering, why in the world do I need to say that?
Yeah.
Why did I share that? Like, constantly feeling that feeling of like vulnerability of like, can I take that back?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's where God wants me to be, in terms of like, so I can constantly be connected to Him of like, oof, don't get too proud.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But I'm constantly feeling like, should I be putting this out there? Should I be talking about these things? And then I just have to just let it go. It's out there. It's in the world. You know what? Social media lasts for 4 seconds. Like,
right.
But to the right heart, it doesn't last for 4 seconds. To the right heart, it's going to last forever. So the person who needs to hear it needs to hear it. Everyone else are just going to keep scrolling. And so that's sort of what I've had to reconcile. Yeah.
That is very true. Because I do branding. And so I tell clients, don't spend too much time on it, because the person who it matters to will hear it. The others are just going to go back. And then I love that you're vulnerable, because I think people crave that vulnerability and authenticity versus curated. Like, there's so much curated stuff on social media now. And I'm all about like taking care of myself and looking good, and I want to feel good. But let's be real. I don't look like this all the time. So I want to show you all the stuff that is like, if you come to my house, my hair's in a ponytail, I have zero makeup on, I'm in sweats and a t-shirt. When I leave the house, it's different. And so that vulnerability that you share, especially because of collegiate athletes that you steward, people are watching and they know that they're watching.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah, and what's interesting in our sport, it has changed so much since I played. There's NIL, which is the name, image, likeness, which I laugh because name, image, likeness, do you know those words from?
Tell me.
From Genesis, like we are made in
his image and likeness, yes.
And I'm like, leave it to sports to go make that into something that's, very...
Leave it to the world to manipulate something that's
exactly.
in the Bible.
But anyway, all these girls are making a ton of money on endorsements, and not all.
A lot of them are. There's so many opportunities. I think some softball player just signed a $1 million NIL deal for a collegiate athlete. There's a gymnast who can barely even walk on campus. Correct. Because she's just loaded. She's got a lot of money. She's beautiful. She's talented, and she's way more famous than any college kid needs to be. Right.
So I think for me, looking at that, like there's such a veneer on college sports right now. I'm so thankful I got to do that experience with nobody watching.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. I was a hot mess in college. And I think that if that had been more publicized or whatever, the only thing in the paper was my stats, that we won or that we lost.
Yeah, because now
Those good old days.
It is. I didn't know that there was an organization, because I see that, right? And we have older kids in college. And so I'm always aware of just media and women and how they're used, and the value in hold on. Our value in this athlete is her athleticism or his athleticism. But now with what you're saying, that new program, you're shifting it to the image, which that's not why they're athletes.
Yeah.
That's not why they're athletes.
Yep.
How do you feel like that impacts what you do?
I don't know yet. I mean, these deals, I would say it's been within the last, I want to say 5 years. It may be it's slightly longer or slightly shorter, but it's very new. I have no idea. It's just like we didn't know the backlash of social media for teenagers until many years after, or giving them phones until many years after. We still don't know the long-term impacts of the close downs from COVID. So it's the same thing. It's a brand new program.
Wow.
And we have no idea. I'll tell you what, there are kids in college, anxiety, depression rates are through the roof for collegiate athletes. We have new diagnoses in college. PTSD now is very common. OCD is very common in collegiate sports now, and bipolar.
Wow.
Those things were not in collegiate sports or reported until recently. Suicide rates are up, and I just think we're not going to know fully for a long time. Wow. And I think it's really, sports is so cool. I love sports. Yeah. I love teams so much. They're so cool. But just like that ambition, there's two sides.
There is.
So
there is. I feel like we can talk all day because I'm just so curious about the work that you do. I have a niece who's in volleyball too, and it's just so wild to me. But I want to thank you for meeting me and coming out here, and you say you say yes, and you do help, and I love that, and I love that our kids are the same age, because sometimes I get taunted with oh, you don't have mom friends. It's kind of lonely sometimes to be a mom of a teenager, because for me specifically, I want to be the best mom for him. And sometimes I feel okay, who do I talk to about because sometimes the questions that they ask us, I was just telling someone, my goal is to never be surprised, shocked or disappointed at anything that they ask me or come to me, because I want them to always come to me. So I'm going to ask you a question. I was going to close, but how do you do that? I'm assuming, but how do you steward that so that they can come to you with anything, knowing your background, right? Because they can't fake it with you.
My kids still come to me. I think one of the sweetest moments that we have for some of that connecting stuff is at night.
Yeah.
Like, I still go put my kids to bed. Like, that's just how it is.
No, I love that. We hang out in the game room, and John will play video games with Joey, and sometimes I will, but yeah, like we'll just hang out and talk.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming and speaking on all the things and just being bold and honestly like walking in the authority that you do, stewarding your family and not being normal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep Austin weird. Yes.
And then I will link where people can find you, like on Instagram. Is your Instagram public now?
Instagram is public. It's at SpikeDoctor3.
Yeah.
Is public. And then PriscillaTallman.com.
Awesome.
For my website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you for being a part of the Worthy Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, share, tell your friends, and tag me on social media.